show that it had fallen on its own literally. So we do monitor them, and we pushed it up to get it fixed. It's just, it's not a piece of hardware that you can go to Best Buy and get. It's a special order, and only a few companies could provide it and install it on that high tower for us.
Okay.
Alderman Lazara.
John, would we be leasing these vending machines? Is that what we're doing? Just to clarify.
We could either lease them or have just hire a vending service to provide the machines, and then they would be charged with the maintenance and taking care of the machines.
So in fact, if they were vandalized, it would be their responsibility to fix these.
I would think so, yeah. They would have their own insurance on their own machines.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so the, I will call on you, but the general direction is to, continue negotiations with vending services until an acceptable vending machine installation is agreed upon. And unless there's anything else, then I'm going to move on to the next item. Alderman Eugene Wesley?
Like, did I just hear that they'll be in charge of their vending machines? There won't be a lease agreement with this? Of having them in our train station?
We haven't actually sat down yet and hammered out what sort of an agreement would be. The first thing we have to do is find the machines.
Okay. I'm just saying,
Yeah. I mean, in a perfect world, we'll get machines that'll sit on the counter. If not, at that point, I'll come back to you and ask if we want to proceed having a floor-mounted vending machine in there, or if we just want to forget the whole idea.
that's fine. All right, thank you.
Okay, then I'm going to go on to the next item. Next item is a report and recommendation on the final reduction of the existing letter of credit and establishment of the 2-year public improvements maintenance bond for Villa Cara subdivision. This particular developer did claim bankruptcy, and there currently is a $120,000 letter of credit. The report here indicates that staff did review the approved plans and worked with the bank on having the items completed that were according to plan. So it looks like the recommendation is to reduce the letter of credit by a little less than $80,000 to $40,893. Mr. Forrest, did you wish to add anything to that before I ask any questions?
I don't think so. I just, unfortunately, with the developer virtually abandoning the subdivision, he's kind of put a little burden on the rest of the parties involved, the homeowners that are there, the bank that was holding the letter of credit, and in a certain respect, the city. But West Suburban Bank that has been holding the letter of credit have been extremely cooperative with staff. They had to, after inspections by the city engineering firm and also city services, they ended up removing and replacing some of the curbing in there. They did some repairs to the binder and the base course on the street, and then did put the final lift of asphalt on the street, installed a street light, repaired another one. They repaired the fencing in the common areas, and they've been maintaining the pond. So we do have a couple of issues. They did submit a bill of sale to the city on the public improvements. I've reviewed that with the city attorney. There have been some recommendations made by the city attorney's office to redo the bill of sale, so I have to send that back to the bank for them to delete a couple of items and clarify a couple of other things, because we will be getting a bill of sale for them to accept the public improvements in there. And then also they have to actually issue us the physical bond for the 2-year maintenance agreement. So my reason for bringing this forward tonight is, as we're not going to be having a council meeting next week, the next council meeting will be the first week in October. The bank is very anxious to get this going, so I figured if we could bring this forward tonight, by the council meeting, any of these odds and ends will be tied up and ready to go.
Thank you. Alderman Eugene Wesley?
Is there a detention basin involved in this?
Correct.
Okay, right there, I have a problem. All right, so now the city is going to take, or is there a homeowner association?
A homeowners association is required per the subdividers agreement. The developer abandoned the subdivision before he formed the homeowners association, leaving kind of a bad taste in the mouth of most of the property owners because he had been collecting dues from everybody, but left with the dues.
Okay.
So I worked with the Office of the City Attorney. A month ago, a letter was sent out to all the property owners in there advising them that they do need to form a homeowners association because according to the subdividers agreement and also the recorded covenants for the subdivision, the homeowners association is obliged to take over maintenance of the detention pond. What the city is going to be getting with the bill of sale will be the water system, the sanitary system, the storm sewer lines that are in the right-of-ways that we'll be taking, and then the streets. So the common area around the detention pond, the fencing that's around the detention pond, the entrance structures, those will be the responsibility of the homeowners association to maintain.
I do a follow-up.
Go ahead, follow up, and then I'm going
All
to
right,
call in.
my follow-up
Alderman
is, I will tell you right now, my vote's gonna be no. Because right now, then we are putting the city in liability with the detention basin, okay? Second off, the other thing is, until that homeowner association gets together and they agree to maintain a detention basin and maintain whatever grounds, my point is, I see where these things are going now. We are going to be in, we had that lady come in and complain, I wasn't here last meeting about a detention basin. We are now treating this detention basin, okay, that doesn't even belong to the city. Okay? So, well, even, and we're putting liens on the detention basin because we're doing work on it. We're going to start getting into any developer, grant, the economy went south, no doubt about it. But they're forcing the city to take over the detention basins. And I don't think this city is obligated to take over the detention basin and keep paying out money to maintain the detention basins in this community. So if that thing fills up with water, I don't know if there's water in there, and I'm sorry to go over there and look at it, that is my concern about we are going to inherit, with this memo right now, we are inheriting a detention basin, no homeowner association is formed. I can't support this.
Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In setting up a couple of the newer subdivisions within the last, I think, 5 or 6 years, the city actually set up some dormant special service areas in case the homeowners associations default on their obligations. And I'm 95% positive that the detention pond in this subdivision has one of those dormant service areas on it. So if it does get set up and they default on their obligations, the city can pull the trigger and issue bonds that those homeowners will then have to pay for so that the city can maintenance that pond. So, you know, a backup default hedge against exactly what you're talking about. So they'll still wind up paying for it. It's kind of a backdoor to it, but we do have that hedge built in on that one. And there's another one, I apologize, I don't remember the second one, but there are 2 detention ponds that we do have that backup SSA on.
Thank you. Alderman Woods?
Given the circumstances, I think, you know, I'm in agreement with Alderman Wesley, but I think I would add to that to let the bank know, because they are trying, that we would do that release contingent upon them completing those things, and one of them being the homeowners association, obviously the corrections to the bill of sale per our attorney's direction, so that just to cover us in the event that they do walk away. We all know as soon as they get that reduction and the balance goes down to the 2-year maintenance agreement, they're probably going to be a little less likely to be proactive on behalf of that homeowners association, especially when it hasn't been formally filled and staffed, let's say. So I would say it would be okay to do that, but only contingent upon them completing those things that we need to get done. Thanks.
Just for clarification, Alderman Woods, it is one of your contingent items that they have to form the homeowners association first before we request
Correct.
a letter of credit?
Yes.
Okay. Alderman Coles?
Could I ask John, has the retention pond been cut? The last time I was over there, it was pretty high. Do you know where it has been cut?
Mr. Forrest?
Yes, it has.
It has been cut.
Correct. The bank
Because the last time I
been-
was there, it was pretty high. Next to that house, it was pretty, that big house that they built there, it was pretty ugly.
Yeah. No,
Okay,
it's been cut. And the fence repaired also.
all right.
Mr. Forrest, how close are they to forming a homeowners association?
The bank, I mean, the only hesitation I have here is forming the homeowners association is not really a function or responsibility of the bank that's holding the letter of credit. It's not the purpose of the letter of credit. Forming the homeowners association was more a function of the developer, which he did not do. And I met with the city attorney this afternoon. We talked about that issue. We talked about the fact that there may be a silent SSA for this area. But it's really an issue that the city is going to have to pressure the homeowners to form this association. How close they are, I have heard through the grapevine that the homeowners have been contacting each other. They have had discussions about the homeowners association, but I have yet to receive a formal response to the letter that was sent out. So my thought is to send another letter. I was going to try and get to that today, but send another letter tomorrow, just advising them that I'm waiting, the city is waiting to hear from them about forming the homeowners association.
So it is possible that they may never do it, or it could be a considerable amount of time before they form anything.
Well, when you look at the covenants, they talk about property owners are eligible to be a member of the homeowners association, but it does not say that on the immediate transfer of the property, the homeowners association is formed. So yeah, unless they willingly do it, yes, the city will have to pressure them to form the homeowners association. But again, that is not a function of the letter of credit.
Okay. Mayor, Police?
John, you said it, and I think Brad just said it. There might be an SSA. Is there, or we're not sure yet? We think there might be. It's not a yes for sure, right?
Correct.
Okay. Just so it's clear.
Yeah, this subdivision was originally approved in May of 2003. So this subdivision has been in existence for about 8 years. My opinion, I don't think we have a silent SSA on it. I think that this was done before we started putting those into subdivisions. My initial review of the paperwork today, when I was meeting with Mary, I couldn't find language on that, so she was going to check her records just to see. Because this subdivision was in talk and it was approved. Some of the documents were approved right at the time we were switching from our previous city attorney to the new city attorneys, so.
Alderman Lazara?
John, I think the concern is the detention pond.
Sure.
Would there be any way that we can set up some kind of a formula that would protect the city from taking over the maintenance of this detention pond? And if so, who would be responsible for continuance as far as maintenance on this detention pond? Once this, let's say we do give them their money back, now who's obligated to, if there is no homeowner association, who would be obligated to maintain this pond? Would it be us? Would it be homeowners that don't really care if it's, 2 feet tall? I think if you can find a solution to that. What's that? Thanks, John.
Alderman Woods?
Again, I'm sure that the homeowners association isn't specifically covered under that letter of credit. But if you stretch it, I mean, it's really part and parcel of turning over the storm system. While we still have them online, if they could help put some pressure, I think it's in everybody's best interest that that homeowners association get formed. Thank you.
Mr. Forrest, how soon do you think you'd be able to dig up the details on what would happen to the pond if a homeowners association wasn't formed, and some more details?
I would think we could have that information by next week,
Okay, so potentially by the next
by the next committee meeting.
committee meeting,
Mhm.
which would be at the end of the 4th September?
Correct.
4th week in September?
I think it's the 22nd. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to table this discussion
Second.
till that next committee meeting in September. And I do have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is items to be considered at future meetings. And item A is the City of Wooddale floodplain buyout policy. And Mr. Forrest, can you give us a little summary of what to look forward to in October on that?
Actually, I think what I would like to do is find out, first of all, if the city council wants to go forward with this type of a program, which would mean that the city would have to come up with funds, and we would go into the business of buying out flood-prone properties. This is an item that was a real hot-button topic with some members on the previous council. Whether it still is, I don't really know. I mean, I know we've got, the county has bought out some properties. There have been some other properties bought out by other agencies. We're in now for a grant to get some more buyout money for some of the other properties. So I guess it's a good time for me to ask if you as a council want me to go forward and spend staff time actually coming forward with our own City of Wooddale flood-prone property buyout program, or concentrate more on seeing what type of grant monies are available to buy out some of these properties. The focus had seemed to be on the properties on Salt Creek, but I think we're all aware we have flooding issues pretty much all over town. So, again, do we want to use city money to buy out these properties, or do we want to concentrate more on trying to get grant monies to do this? So I guess I'm looking for some direction from the council on how much time you want me to spend on this.
So there's the funding aspect, and then there's also, what do we do when we get the money, right? Like, what focus areas will there be?
Right, and who makes to determine what house gets bought out and why? And what constitutes, unless you're on Salt Creek and you're in a floodplain and you know that you're going to have reoccurring flooding every so often, I mean, what constitutes flooding in another neighborhood, in another ward, half a mile away from the creek? Does it become subjective then as to, well, yeah, this house, we should buy this out because they get 6 inches of water in their basement whenever it rains? Or I see it being could be very involved.
Sure, and it might take, and I'm going to ask other council people too on where they want to take this conversation. But my take on it is that we definitely work on what we do when we get the money, whether it is grant money that the lobbyist is able to attain, or whether whether staff obtains grant monies or partial funding by the city. For whatever that is, we should have a list and a process for how to handle that, so we can move on it once we get the monies in place. So I'm going to start on my left and work my way down. Alderman Woods?
Yeah, I would say that I think we should go ahead, like Alderman Winger said, and develop the guidelines that we'd follow to go through this. I don't think that we need to go to the second step and create a list of properties that we would buy today because we don't have any money. But certainly we should develop some guidelines or some process that we would entertain when the situations arise and we have money. So right now, it seems like, it's haphazard what happens, and people all question why this was done or why that was done. So developing those guidelines, I think, will at least help us out in that regard. And then we can address the issues when they come across and when the money comes through. Thank you.
Alderman Lazara.
John, I know we don't want a list right now, but do we have an idea about how many homes we would consider? If you were to think of it right now, what number would come to your mind?
I don't really have any definitive number right now, and, again, what constitutes the criteria that would make a house eligible for buyout? Is a house that right now might be adversely affected by existing drainage patterns that could maybe be fixed? I know we're doing a, citywide study of stormwater drainage. Possibly factors in that can be corrected to alleviate some of the flooding. I mean, there might be a house in your ward that when we have heavy rains, they take 2 feet of water in their basement. Is that something that would qualify as a buyout, or is that something that would qualify to be included in the program to fix some of the stormwater drainage through the neighborhoods?
Okay.
So I don't really have a number for you right now.
Thanks.
And I do agree that there's instances like that in probably every ward and in all areas of
There are.
Wooddale. It's just not along Salt Creek. Alderman Eugene Wesley.
I have a couple. On last year's budget, I thought we put money into a separate account to start something like this into the city.
I recall it as minimal,
But
like 10,000, 5,000. It wasn't enough to buy anything, but it was seed money
I thought we were.
to show the intent. Mr. Murmas?
Yeah, the Finance Director Wilson is signaling 15,000, but we never really had I don't believe we had a pool of money that we would draw from on a regular basis for these properties. The idea was, we don't even have a policy in place. Let's find out, one, if we want to do this, get the policy in place, and worry about funding mechanism later. And that was the thought process
I
at the
thought
time.
the thought process is that grant money comes in, that
Well, I believe some of the
goes
grants that
into
we've,
earmarked,
some of the
that
grants,
earmarked to that account.
some of the grants that we've applied for have their own specific criteria that they look at anyway, outside of whatever we're going to say. They have their own criteria. They don't care about our criteria.
Okay. Again, I think it's something to look at, but I thought the state or someone's got a requirement that the house reaches a certain, and that's where we should pretty much draw the guidelines. If you got so much of your house damaged, that might be, that we might have to consider, if we consider buyout. You gotta look at the rules that are out there now. If you're 50, if I'm mistaken, if you're 40 or 50% damage to that house, you can't do anything with that house. Or you can't rebuild or something. Isn't it the FEMA rule?
No, I don't want to get too much
Well,
into
that-
house and what,
I'm just-
but if you'd like to answer the question, Mr. Murmas.
Well, that's why we're asking.
and
Do
then
you,
we'll
do you
talk
want us
about-
to, I mean, we could
Right.
go ahead and establish our own rules and guidelines, but unless we have a funding mechanism of our own to work off of, nobody really cares because they all have their own funding mechanisms anyway.
Mr. Forrest?
Yes, to address Alderman Eugene Wesley's question too, some of the grants, at least the ones that I'm familiar with, and the one actually that Bill Blecky and I are working on now, an application, you have to put specific property addresses in there and the criteria for that property to get the grant. So the grants, some are issued specific to certain pieces of property. So, and again, typically the grant money is for properties that are in the floodplain. If we have a property perhaps in the Ward 4, or we have some other properties in Ward 1, that are nowhere near the floodplain, but suffer reoccurring flooding due to poor stormwater drainage, would that qualify those houses, you know, should the city go on the line and purchase those homes?
Mayor, Police?
John, actually, that's where I was going. I think the money would be better spent if we would have, after we've done those studies that are sitting on the shelf right now, actually pick one of the projects and fix the flooding in that area. We've got 3 different wards, they're all unfunded projects. If we're gonna start putting money aside, maybe we fix the flooding issues before 10 more houses become on the list.
I'm not sure if any hands were raised. Alderman Shockey?
I think we should perhaps table this item for a short time, maybe 5 or 10 years, until the recession is over, and we can figure out where we would get the money from, except for those grant proposals that you're talking about. I think it's kind of silly to be talking about buying up houses when you don't really have the money to buy up houses. And we're still, 4 or 5 months behind on the state giving us the payments for taxes and everything? I think it's, we even haven't, in reference to Alderman Woods, we don't even have a procedure yet to bring in houses or land that purposely, it doesn't really, I don't think it makes sense to talk about this kind of money at this point. So I'd like to see it brought up in 5 years or 10 or whatever it takes for the depression to be over.
Alderman Woods?
I think, again, all the things that we all touched upon would actually be part of the policy. I mean, they all come into play. It's not going to be an open policy of this is how you go to the city of Wooddale and get your house bought. I mean, we are doing the flooding studies and street studies, and there would be options of, is it a $1,000, $2,000 corrective matter that the homeowner could take care of, something or a procedure they would have to go through first. And again, the first step is at least creating the bare bones structure of those guidelines that would follow. I don't think anybody believes we're going to go out and buy a house tomorrow, next year, or the year after. But as with many things, it takes a lot of planning ahead of time, proactive, at least have some guidelines to start from, whether it be we can apply for a grant or we follow the state's guidelines or whatever it is. All the things that we've talked about would be eventually encompassed under those guidelines. So I for one, think that while it doesn't have to be on the front burner, working on it 40 hours a week, it is something that we probably need to start working on. Thank you.
I'm never in favor of doing work just to do it, to look good, or to, show we're doing something. But I do believe this, and I don't want to create work, but I do believe this project is important to have the discussions and guidelines, priority listing, and it's important to know what we're looking for and where we're headed. So I believe that'll even facilitate the grant process. If there's a listing identified of the areas and the needs that our citizens have, I believe that'll allow us to better focus on finding funding or understanding what areas would easily qualify for federal or county funding and which ones wouldn't, and then what avenues to take on those. So I would like to see the discussion in October and focused on guidelines and priority listings to help drive our activities for stormwater buyout, flooding buyout, and also I think that'll also help us understand what projects could fix certain areas, and maybe we do the project to make the issue go away instead of buying out the house, that type of thing. Alderman Coles?
I thought this was supposed to be for October. This is
getting there.
this is September,
It is,
all right?
okay.
I mean, we're talking here, we can't do nothing, we don't have any money. we don't have any thing set up yet. He hasn't write a document on what he wants, what tells you a house that has to be gone or has to be bought or anything. It said here October.
And I'm looking to have a productive conversation
Well,
in
it's
October.
September now.
So let's understand what we're gonna talk about instead of just pushing it to October. Anything else, Alderman Roy Wesley?
I think we should make a policy and because you never know when we're going to have to join the forest preserve or the county to buy out our property for flooding or anything. And if we don't have a policy, that house may never be bought, so.
Right. Next item, Mr. Forrest, you have your, the input that you were looking for? Yes. Okay, good, thank you. Next item for future meetings is amendments to local building code in October. Item C is Thorndale Avenue overlay in September. Does anyone wish to bring up any future items or questions? Alderman Eugene Wesley?
I really like to get into a discussion on detention basins in this community. No, I think it needs to be addressed due to the fact is that we are spending taxpayers' money now trying to fix a detention basin that is not our detention basin, that the taxpayers are paying for. Even though we're leading that property, I think we need to have a discussion on detention basins. Is the city going to jump in and repair every detention basin when someone comes in and says, and we're going to lean the detention basin? That needs to be a long discussion here. I'm sorry, that needs to be brought out. Because now we got this detention basin that we don't know who's going to take over. There may be more.
No, I'm not sure if it's Mr. First, yourself, or Mr. Kramer on the whole detention basin discussion and interacting with Stormwater Commission, but I thought we gave that whole discussion over to Stormwater on looking at detention basins and how to handle, et cetera.
Well, I just need some clarity on what exactly are we going to discuss with detention basin? I mean, we had an incident where it was a public health and safety nuisance, so the city went in there, public safety-wise, is going to lien the property, charge the owner back in that instance. So what is it that you want to discuss?
Typical example right here, there's a detention basin that this city may inherit down the line, and who knows what else may be out there, okay? I understand that, but if a detention basin goes in a safety hazard, I agree we should. But again, you could lien the property, and I addressed this concern before, you could lien the property all you want. Does that mean that we're gonna get our money out of it? No. We could write them tickets after tickets. Does that mean we're gonna get our money out of it? No. We could drag them in court? No. Point is, where do we draw the line on detention basins in this city that we take ownership or we abandon, or they are responsible for it, or they create a homeowner association? I mean, that's the discussion I want to have. And I agree, if you want to go stormwater with, and they have been working on it, no doubt about it. But the point is, we got this incident going on now that, you know, it's costing, I don't know, roughly $2,000 for us to get this detention basin back in working condition. And it's not even our detention basin.
Well, when it becomes a public safety, and that's when we have to jump in. Mr. Murmas?
I think John is already going to take care of the question on what happens with the pond if the homeowners don't take responsibility per the Villa Cara discussion, so we'll have some answers right there.
I have a comment about the other pond that you're talking about where the city had to go in because it became a public health hazard. That pond is a piece of private property, so I issued a must-appear citation to the owner of that. By the time the court date is set, we'll have a bill from the vendor. My plan is to have the prosecuting attorney present that to the judge, and aside from any other fines that the judge might impose on him, also order him to reimburse the city for any out-of-pockets.
Alderman Woods?
I think stormwater is addressing this. Some of it gets addressed with the flooding issues. You know, it seems like we're talking about these ponds all over. I think Alderman Wesley's concern is the same concern as a few others up here, you know, especially in light of the Villa Cara thing. We just don't want to get stuck with them. We know it happens, and history is our teacher here, happens more times than not. I think that that's more what we're frustrated with and would like to look into. We don't want to create another separate study, or, you know, just really express our concern. At least that's my concern with Villa Cara, that, you know, if nobody takes ownership of the thing, I know exactly what's going to happen. We're going to be doing the same thing we're doing. So I think the way things are right now with stormwater, looking at it is okay, and along with the flood studies and everything that we're looking at, I think we've got it covered. But just going forward, that we are more cognizant of getting somebody to take ownership of this and not just a single person. You know, if you can go after 10, 12, 15 homeowners and hold them in the court, you'll get something done. Thank you.
Alderman Roy Wesley?
John, I have if that homeowner went into foreclosure or whatever, who's supposed to take care of that? Or if the guy, something happens or something?
And are you asking this question to determine if you do want to have a discussion on it at future
Yes,
meetings?
because if it's just if there's a owner that owns, there's one detention pond, I'm taking it's just one person.
Mr. Forrest?
Which pond are we talking about specifically?
The one you're talking about, you said.
The one, you're talking about the pond, the
The guy that
Montrose,
you gave the ticket to.
the pond, Montrose Street, yes, okay. Yeah.
I don't know the guy.
I'm sorry, what was your question?
What happens if the pond belongs to one person, correct?
Correct, it's a private
Do
owner.
we have
yes.
any other ponds that belong to one person? If that's the case, what happens if that one house that owns this pond goes into foreclosure, or the guy, something happens to the gentleman and something happens to the property? Does the city become liable for it and takes over the property? Or does the bank takes it over, or what happens?
That's a question you'd probably have to ask the city attorney, but I would think the ownership of the pond would go into his estate and any heirs, you know, that would be inheriting the property. I'm not aware how many ponds we have that there's only one person that owns them. This is the only one that I know of, that the actual pond is owned by one person. I know we have detention ponds throughout the city that are owned and maintained by homeowners associations, but as far as private ponds, I'm not aware of any.
I would like to have a discussion on that particular pond because of the situation. And that, I'm not concerned about the homeowners associations because there's always going to be homeowners associations. I'm concerned about individual ponds owned by individual people.
But I thought you said on that particular pond.
Yeah, the one he wrote the ticket in.
And that's the one that we're going to talk about in 2 weeks from now, right? Or is that the homeowners, or is that the condo one?
I don't see a need to talk about that specifically at a council meeting. We'll talk to the city attorney. He'll give you some written communique on what happens if what you're saying happens. Still, I don't understand any committee direction right now. We seem to be targeting these individual ponds, and we can do that with a written communique from the attorney.
Alderman Coles?
Yeah, there's 2 ponds. There's 2 other ponds. There's on Elizabeth Street on Wooddale Road and Elizabeth Drive. There's 2 owned by there, and the lady wanted us to pay the back taxes on them to give them to us. So she didn't want to pay the taxes on them. And they were overgrown, and the trees, nobody takes care of them. That's there's 2 other ones besides, and they're in your ward anyway. I just want to let you know. So there is 2, so that I know of, and there's probably 3 or 4 more other ones around. There's Joe Johnson's the one that Kramer's putting the stuff in right now, that's 4.
Okay,
All right.
we don't need to list
Okay.
all the plans. Okay, your turn. Alderman, police, sorry, Mayor, please.
Jeff, we might have to do an executive session on this, possible litigation for all this stuff, instead of, before we start. plans
Again,
and all this stuff.
I don't recommend that we talk about it at committee at this time, and the attorney will give us some correspondence.
Right.
Anything else at future meetings? Alderman Roy Wesley?
Okay, we're heading into another year for Ethan Woods here. The streets aren't done there, the lights aren't done, or nothing's done. Could we talk about that again? Because I want to know if the street's been inspected for, because it's been so many years, the binding probably is torn up or whatever. Is it going to be safe? Nothing's being done over there. And to my understanding, there's been some other problems. I'm not going to go into details about it. I have a very big concern with this subdivision right now because there's problems.
Mr. Forrest?
The city attorney and I had a meeting late this afternoon with the developer from Ethan Woods and also the bank that's holding the letter of credit on that. And there will be a memo included in your next packet giving you an update on the conditions over there and what's going to be happening. Very timely question.
Mayor, police, did you wish any?
No.
Anything else? Okay, I'm not seeing any other items for future meetings. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Anything on the question? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to call to order the September 8th meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee. Would the minute taker please show the same people present? First item is an approval of the minutes of August 25th, 2011. And I'd like to congratulate Alderman Winger. If you look at the minutes, Alderman Winger made a motion. Alderman Winger seconded that motion. And then Alderman Winger voted against the motion.
Oh, no.
All in one little paragraph. I think we need to, I think the second was made by Alderman Coles, if I remember correctly. So if we can change that in the minutes, I'd appreciate it. Otherwise, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as
I
changed.
have 2 errors in the minutes.
Another one? Oh, go
2
ahead.
errors in the minutes. On paragraph 3, it's supposed to be AV, not AB, and there's 2 ABs instead of AVs in the paragraphs.
Okay, we'll make those changes as well.
Okay, that's all I
Minute
got.
taker has that.
Okay.
That could cause us problems in the future. Any comments? Any other comments? Alderman Eugene Wesley.
I will also correct this one, that I was not at this meeting. I was absent for that part of that meeting, Finance Committee.
Oh, my goodness.
Because I only made it here for my Public Works Committee.
Well, it shows that you were absent.
No, Wesley was absent.
Oh, you're right, okay.
I was not here for the Finance.
Okay, that's another change we can make in those minutes. And do I have a second to approve those minutes with the changes?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Abstain.
Abstain.
All right. Next item is report and recommendation on the AV upgrades. You have in front of you an analysis about the video system controller, the digital video server, the external network, et cetera, et cetera. I don't understand any of it, to be honest with you. But I will make a motion to spend $13,364 to come from our PEG channel fees. That's the Comcast and AT&T collect PEG fees from their customers for support of channel 6 and 99, and these fees are passed along to the city and can only be used to upgrade the PEG channel equipment and services by law. If you have any questions, I make that as a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
If we have any questions, we can have the IT manager come out and explain? Do you need the IT manager or just a manager?
Jeff could answer, that's fine.
Alderman Wesley.
Couple of questions. How old is all this equipment in here for AV?
I believe it's 03, I believe.
So 2003 this was installed. Okay, Mike, you know what? I see what's going to happen to this now. I know the equipment is, 2003 this was installed. I think it's time to really, really look at updating the whole entire system. 2003. What I see happening now, we're going to go ahead and purchase this equipment, and I'm in favor of purchasing equipment, but before I would consider just buying that equipment, I would look and try to come back with a ballpark figure what it would cost, because there's been a lot of complaints saying that the mics, people turn their mics on, you can't hear it. I would really consider looking at updating the whole entire system, what it may cost. Now, if I could have a finance director up here, and may I continue?
I guess so.
Okay. I believe what we could do is, I understand that it only could be used for that funding. What I would consider doing is look at the whole entire system, PA, everything, and what the dollar amount comes back. If it comes back over what they give us, there's no reason why we can't go into the general fund at that time to pay for the updated equipment, take the money every year and put this back into this account to do it. 2003, this system was installed here. That's what I get. Now we're going to buy a piece of equipment for $13,364. Now, if something else goes down with this system, is it going to be compatible to repair this system to operate that system? My question is, why are we considering piecemealing it together, one piece at a time? Why don't we look at the whole project first?
If I may, the IT manager did tell us it's going to take 2 or 3 phases. This would be phase 1, and it's the most critical part of it. That's what he'd like to have done first with the money we get back from the Comcast and AT&T fees. And then we can go into phase 2 and phase 3 as necessary. Mr. Manager, if you'd like to comment.
Sure. Yeah, I'd like to try to avoid a cameo from the IT manager unless we absolutely need him as he's back there taping. But essentially, we already doing what you're suggesting, Alderman Wesley, because we only have about $6,000 of PEG fees so far. So we were already going to take roughly $6,000 from the IT fund to help pay for this equipment and then reimburse it later with the PEG fees. So if you want to do that on a larger scale, that's fine. We can do that. We're already doing it with this. Why we want to replace this piece of equipment, because obviously it's the most important piece. It's the oldest piece. I mean, when we first installed this, we were dealing with playing back VHS tapes. It's like a switcher. When we record the council meeting, we used to record it on VHS, and then we program it into a switcher that's connected to the computer. The switcher tells the computer to play the VHS at this time. Okay, that's how we used to do it. We still kind of do it that way. However, we're recording onto DVDs now. That takes a lot of time. You record onto the DVD, then the switcher tells the computer to play the DVD. It's time consuming. So what we want to do is have a system where everything's just recorded on a hard drive, linked into the computer, kind of one machine. That's just, there's a hard drive of the video, and it plays. And there's no converting VHSs, no converting DVDs, no tapes, none of that nonsense. That takes too long. So that's why we want to do this now. As far as the rest of the room, there's really not a lot of problems with the room per se. I mean, the microphones work, obviously. If you want to get into voice-sensitive microphones that automatically turn on and get to that point in technology, I mean, you may go upwards of $100,000 to $200,000 to redo the whole room if you wanted to. rewiring everything, state-of-the-art everything. That's how much it could cost. In fact, I think pretty much that's how much it cost the first time. I think it was over $100,000 to get this up to date. I mean, phase 2, we could jump into now with phase 1 and buy new cameras. Some of the cameras are becoming a little bit dated. They still work, but we could purchase those now if we wanted to, and then just pay back the general fund with PEG fees when we get it. But like I said, a lot of the equipment is working and is functional. Some of it does need to go, like this $13,000 component needs to be fixed.
I agree with everything you say, except about not having the information technology manager come out here. He's not bad looking, he wouldn't scare anybody. I mean,
We can have them come out here. It's just gonna detract from the quality of the video right now.
and by the way, you know, we do get complaints about the TV, about the sound, about the quality of the picture. If you do go on the computer, the picture is perfect, and the sound is really good. So maybe there's something there, and maybe this is part of it, that would correct that problem so that the TV could be used to watch our meetings as well.
Typically, when we're switching from all these different formats, we're recording on tape, switching to DVDs, and then playing it back in the switcher, that could detract from the quality, whereas when we have it on the hard drive and we convert that takes time, but that does seem to have a higher quality, which is what we want to do for everything. On TV, it would be played straight from a computer instead of from a tape or a disc.
It should wrap it up, but I guess it doesn't. Roy Wesley.
I get complaints all the time about the sound and the video and stuff. Can't we put on there a contact person if you can't hear this video or whatever, or call this number or something? And I mean, sometimes it's just minor.
Yeah, I mean, we could scroll anything we want on the video. That's not a problem. I do know that a lot of times when we do get complaints, to be quite blunt with you, it's somebody didn't turn on their microphone. It's as simple as that.
That's okay.
That's one of the biggest problems. Somebody
Blame
didn't turn on
us,
their
that's okay.
microphone. Not saying the city council people
No,
at the
of course
podium,
not.
perhaps.
No.
Anybody else? Mr., over here first? Mike? No, Mr. Coles.
As everybody knows, the industry changes every year. So it's been in since 2003, so it's time it was changed, just like your telephone. You'll get one that says G4, now G5 is coming out, and that ain't even a year ago. You got your small Facebooks, and now they're coming out with another one, so a different one. So you gotta update the equipment. Equipment is the most important thing to update in anything like this, especially visual and audio.
Matter of fact, when I heard the word Twitter, I thought it was from a Disney movie that their birds were singing or something, so I don't understand this stuff. Mr. Manager.
Alderman Wesley is correct, though. I mean, we could tweak this proposal. We'll add in the new cameras. I mean, obviously, we're going to have to do those eventually anyway. If the council is okay with using the IT fund or the general fund or whatever to pay back, the PEG fees when we get them, we can certainly do that. We would get about $12,000 in PEG fees a year. Like I said, right now, we're 6 months collected. We just started collecting these fees, so we only have $6,000. So we would have to tap into another fund and then pay it back with the PEG fees once we get it, which is not a problem. We're going to do it on a small scale. It'll be slightly more expensive with the cameras, and maybe there's some other tweaks. But if you want to do major changes and redo the whole room just to redo the whole room, then you're talking big dollars.
We do have a motion on the floor for $13,364. And we did have a second? Okay, can we vote on that, please? Would you call roll?
Hang on, manager wants to talk.
Do you want to vote too?
No. I would just say that, yeah, we should probably amend it. We'll come back to the council with a final price. We'll add in the cameras, which will probably be a couple extra $1,000, and then we'll go from there. We'll just take it.
So you want to table this now?
I think we could, if we get general direction, we'll just take it to the council with this theory with the price, with the new price.
Well, we have a motion on the floor. Do we just drop that or
We can amend.
amend it?
Tweak
The option.
tweak it.
We amended it with the option as the manager
Yeah, I would
said.
just say, up to $20,000. And we'll
Okay.
give you exact
All in
details
favor?
at council.
Opposed? Who opposed? Oh, geez. Okay. Items to be considered for future meetings. The fiscal year 2007, 2011 audit report, the revenue handbook, that'll be in November as well, and the AM audit report in October. Are there any other items for the finance department? Yeah, Mr. Roy Wesley.
I don't know where this come under. The website for the city of Wooddale, we talked about it at the budget time,
You talking about the
the video.
video?
Yes.
Yeah, that's, we actually are working with a contractor right now. He's in the beginning stages, so we have started that.
Okay.
Anything else? I'll make a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No opposed. Motion carries.